Lily Evans and Severus Snape were sitting beneath the whispering boughs of a willow tree near the edge of the Black Lake, their conversation low and secretive, each word brimming with the enthusiasm of youth and the magic they had only just begun to grasp. Severus held out a book he had borrowed from the restricted section, timidly brushing a bit of hair away from his face as Lily's eyes shimmered with curiosity. They were both caught in the throes of discovery, trying to decipher a complicated enchantment that seemed to tangle the moment in a quiet hush, separate from the rest of Hogwarts, as if a protective bubble encased them. When Lily giggled, the world felt bright to Severus, and her bright green eyes reminded him of fresh spring leaves, full of promise and the belief that life could be good. She reached out to lightly squeeze his hand in thanks, leaving Severus with a flush on his cheeks and a feeling that maybe, just maybe, his future wasn't destined to be as dark as he sometimes feared. He smiled in return, mumbling that her brilliance was half the reason they managed to interpret half the runic script, and he closed the book with a careful snap. The pair lingered, neither ready to go back inside because there was something perfect and freeing in these stolen moments of camaraderie. As the sun set behind the castle, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, Lily and Severus stayed beneath the willow, discussing potions, runes, and the subtleties of wand movements. For them, Hogwarts was a place of wonder, but it was also peppered with challenges, house rivalries, expectations, and the whispers of the outside world seeping through the walls. In that hush of twilight, Lily confessed that she felt more understood in these quiet conversations than anywhere else, which caused a flutter in Severus's chest that he dared not name. His voice trembled as he told her that she was the brightest witch he'd ever met, and that he wished to stand by her side, to learn with her, to share in the mysteries they uncovered. She laughed, not unkindly, but in a gentle surprise, because she understood how difficult it was for him to speak in such ways, to open his heart when so often he was guarded. Eventually they rose, gathering their things as the moon crept overhead, and made their way back through the Hogwarts grounds, the castle lights guiding them through the archways. Neither knew then how precious these moments would become, how they would shape the threads of fate in ways so profound that the entire wizarding world could shift at the mercy of a single relationship. But in that fleeting space of time, friendship was all that mattered, and the world was kinder for it. A week later, Lily and Severus were poring over potions texts in the library, hush enveloping them, their quills scribbling in unison as they deciphered the properties of a particularly stubborn herbal extract. Severus found that Lily's natural ability to see connections between ingredients was unparalleled, and she reciprocated the admiration by acknowledging his knack for forging new paths where standard recipes fell short. The librarian passed by once, casting them a reproving look for the hushed excitement in their voices, but neither cared much. They were partners in knowledge, allies bound by curiosity and an ever-growing mutual respect. At times, Severus felt compelled to say more, to speak of the swirling thoughts in his mind and the tingling feeling in his chest whenever Lily's gaze met his. But he silenced the urge, fearful that words might fracture the fragile beauty of what they shared. Instead, he allowed the potent brew of his fondness to simmer slowly, trusting it to give warmth to every conversation, hoping Lily felt the same unspoken closeness. Days stretched into weeks, and Lily and Severus formed an unbreakable routine of exchanging ideas on magical theory and comparing notes. They delved into the complexities of the latest Defense Against the Dark Arts lessons, each approaching the subject from different angles but ending up at the same place. Sometimes, as they made their way through the corridors, they would see James Potter and his friends huddled together, planning their next mischievous prank. Severus would stiffen, but Lily would gently place her hand on his wrist, a small but powerful gesture that anchored him in the moment. One bright morning, Lily came to him with excitement shining in her eyes, eager to show him a small charm she had been perfecting. It danced from her wand as a shimmering stream of light that coalesced into a series of glowing petals, drifting gently in the air before dissolving into nothingness. Severus whispered his admiration, impressed by her intuition and the subtle power behind her wandwork, a reflection of the empathy she carried within. She encouraged him to try, guiding his hand with careful gestures until he too produced a faint sparkle, though not quite as strong or as visually stunning as Lily's demonstration. Still, he felt a sense of quiet pride at her approval, and Lily's grin was all the reward he needed. A day came when she confided to Severus that her sister Petunia was growing more distant, and Lily's heart felt torn between the world she was discovering at Hogwarts and the home she had known before. Severus listened intently, adding small words of reassurance, letting her know that she had a right to embrace her gifts and that he understood the pain of being ostracized. He admitted that he too struggled to find acceptance in a world where his lineage and his proclivities for darker forms of magic made him an outsider. Lily's hand found his again, and she gently squeezed, a silent acceptance of the shadows that loomed around him. In the days that followed, Lily found her spirits lifted whenever she studied with Severus, for he made her feel valued, challenged, and seen all at once. And Severus found that even the gloom of the Slytherin common room could not quell the quiet spark of happiness he felt at having Lily's kindness in his life. They continued to share these private pockets of joy, nights spent in hushed corners of the castle, discussing incantations that shimmered with possibility, weaving dreams of becoming great witches and wizards one day. As the second year passed into the third, their bond only grew stronger, and so did their individual talents. Lily excelled in charms and potions, praised by teachers for her innate skill, while Severus continued to devour advanced theories beyond the standard curriculum. They met at odd hours, sometimes skipping dinner, in favor of finishing a particularly challenging potion experiment, the warmth of their friendship sustaining them. In class, Lily was sometimes teased by her Gryffindor peers for spending so much time with a Slytherin, but she dismissed their jabs with a soft shrug, her loyalty unwavering. And Severus, for his part, bore the brunt of scorn from some in his own house, who called Lily a mudblood in hushed corners, but he defended her with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed. He risked alienation from his fellow Slytherins, but Lily's gratitude was more than enough. He knew she was worth every cost. They navigated the complexities of the wizarding world together, forging their own sense of belonging in those hidden spaces between house banners and expectations. Time flowed like a winding river, bringing new challenges, but for Lily and Severus, there remained a place of calm in each other's company. By their fourth year, Lily had grown into a confident young witch, her hair as vibrant as ever, and Severus carried himself with a subtler pride, the slight slump of his shoulders replaced by a newfound self-esteem. Their circle of study occasionally widened to include others who appreciated their insight, though Lily and Severus always remained at the core, inseparable and steady. Professors began to recognize that when one excelled in an assignment, the other was never far behind, a near unstoppable duo who balanced each other's strengths and weaknesses. Lily's compassion tempered Severus's intensity, and Severus's keen analytical mind spurred Lily on to discover new bounds for her creativity. Whispers of dark times outside Hogwarts walls occasionally drifted into the castle, but the atmosphere for the students, though not without worry, was still primarily one of youthful exploration. There were Quidditch matches, friendly rivalries, and small dramas in hallways, yet Lily and Severus's friendship stood out as a gentle beacon of unity across house lines. They often retreated to the astronomy tower late at night, not always to observe the stars, but to talk in low voices, sharing secrets they held close to their hearts. Sometimes Lily would mention her mother's heartfelt letters. Sometimes Severus would quietly discuss the complexities of his home life, though he rarely revealed everything. Still, Lily sensed there was darkness lingering in the corners of his world, and she wished there was some incantation or potion that could dispel it forever. Fifth year brought the weight of OWS, and the pressure was palpable among students. But Lily and Severus were prepared, having spent untold hours buried in texts and practicing wand work side by side. They immersed themselves in study groups, though they always found time for private sessions, where Lily's laughter would echo between bookshelves, and Severus's subtle smile would be her reward. The tension between Slytherins and Gryffindors was a persistent undercurrent, but Lily and Severus chose to navigate it with as much grace as they could muster, ignoring jibes whenever possible. There were occasional run-ins with James Potter and Sirius Black, two raucous Gryffindors with an aptitude for mischief. Severus had grown to loathe their pranks, but Lily, for her part, remained steadfastly unimpressed by their antics. She continued to focus on her studies, and on Severus, never letting the stares or gossip deter her from the person she chose to call a friend. Winter descended on Hogwarts in their fifth year, blanketing the grounds in snow. Lily, humming in delight, dragged Severus outside one afternoon to walk by the frozen Black Lake. They bantered lightly, Lily making shapes in the snow with a flick of her wand, while Severus admired her quick precision. She teased him about his reluctance to enjoy the cold, claiming he was missing out on the small joys of life. He tried, for her sake, to loosen up, even stooping to scoop up a handful of snow and toss it at her feet. Lily's laughter rang out, echoing like bells against the castle walls, warming him in a way no potion could. Spring arrived, and with it the heavy workload of OWW revision. Lily and Severus spent late nights revising in the common areas, trading memorization charms and drilling each other on complex theories. They boosted each other's confidence, Lily reminding Severus of the brilliance she saw in him, and Severus encouraging Lily to trust her instincts, which were rarely wrong. Exams came and went in a flurry of parchment, quill scratches and anxious murmurs, but both Lily and Severus emerged triumphant, their results among the best in their year. Professors whispered about what they might achieve in NEY classes, how they might innovate in fields as diverse as potions, charms, and even defense against the dark arts. Buoyed by success, they entered their 6th year with renewed determination, diving headfirst into advanced textbooks that promised to expand their knowledge further than ever. The world outside Hogwarts began to turn more ominous, with rumors of a dark wizard gathering followers. But within the castle, Lily and Severus kept their focus, trusting that their studies would prepare them for anything. There were nights when Severus felt conflicted, hearing the whispers of certain Slytherins about the power of the dark arts and how it could grant them influence, a stance that seemed to resonate with his thirst for knowledge. But each time temptation stirred, he remembered Lily's bright eyes and her fierce moral compass, and he found the thought of betraying her trust unbearably painful. So he pushed aside the darker possibilities, immersing himself further in legitimate magical research, ensuring his path stayed aligned with the unwavering friendship that had become the bedrock of his life. He grew adept at defensive spells, though he rarely demonstrated them openly, aware that his housemates might start asking questions he wasn't prepared to answer. Meanwhile, Lily continued to blossom in her magical abilities, her name mentioned among the professors as a model student who paired academic excellence with kindness in equal measure. Whenever she beamed at Severus, an unspoken message passed between them, an unbreakable bond that needed no explanation or label. The dynamic between them was tested only by their differing social circles, but Lily found herself less bothered by her peers' opinions. She was certain that no surface-level gossip could damage the core of her loyalty to Severus. In quieter times, they would discuss life beyond Hogwarts, imagining a future where they would collaborate on groundbreaking potions research, or where Lily might join the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and champion fairness. Severus would speak of new spells he hoped to develop, incantations that might save lives or unravel the complexities of magic to reveal a deeper truth. Whenever Lily teased him about the potential of opening an apothecary, he offered a wry grin, never dismissing the idea outright. But in the back of his mind, a flicker of doubt always lingered. Would the rest of the world allow such an unorthodox partnership to thrive? Could their bond withstand the prejudices that had shadowed them? He clung to Lily's laughter, to her unwavering belief in him, letting that be his antidote to the gloom. 7th year arrived at last, and with it came a swirl of anticipation and anxiety. The final year of Hogwarts was upon them, and the horizon loomed with decisions. Lily was named a prefect, to no one's surprise, while Severus was quietly proud, congratulating her with a shy smile that earned him a friendly jab in the shoulder. Classes were rigorous, yet Lily and Severus found themselves thriving, driven not just by personal ambition, but by a sense of shared purpose. They continued to excel in potions, frequently drawing the attention of Slughorn, who beamed at Lily as one of his prized pupils, and praised Severus for his ingenious approaches. Defense against the dark art classes took on new significance as the threat of dark wizards grew more pronounced. Lily proved adept at shielding charms, while Severus's skill in counter curses was unparalleled. Between classes, they spent stolen moments in the library or the courtyard, sometimes discussing post-graduation plans, sometimes simply relishing the fleeting nature of their last year under Hogwarts' roof. A hush fell over the student body in late autumn when news of attacks on wizarding families reached them, security measures tightened, and the atmosphere became tense. Some of Severus's housemates openly discussed their interest in joining ranks with a dark force that promised glory and power to purebloods, and the sense of foreboding pressed in on him. But every time he faltered, every time he doubted his resolve, Lily was there, offering a kind word or a shared moment of quiet unity, reminding him that he was not alone in forging a different path. In the final weeks before graduation, the stress peaked. Students juggled final assignments, practical exams, and the heavy knowledge that soon they would enter a world fraught with danger. Still, Lily and Severus found comfort in each other. One night, perched in a deserted alcove, Lily recalled the day she first met Severus, how he had shown her the possibilities of the wizarding world. He, in turn, remembered how she had inspired him to step beyond the gloom of his upbringing, to see a glimmer of warmth where before there was only darkness. Their bond had defined their time at Hogwarts, weaving two lives together in a tapestry of trust, understanding, and mutual respect. On the night before the graduation ceremony, Lily and Severus stood by the Black Lake once more, gazing at their reflections in the glassy surface. The water was calm, mirroring the stars overhead. Severus, after a long silence, mustered the courage to speak of his gratitude. He confessed that Lily's friendship had shaped him in ways he never imagined, that she had shown him kindness when others had not. Lily, tears glistening in her eyes, echoed the sentiment, telling him that he had been her anchor at Hogwarts, the one who challenged her mind and cared for her soul. They watched as a gentle breeze rippled the lake's surface, scattering their reflections. But their connection remained as clear as ever. No ripple could distort it. When graduation day came, Lily and Severus parted ways with mutual determination to stay in touch, to continue their pursuit of knowledge, and to resist the dark tide rising in the wizarding world. They exchanged letters frequently after Hogwarts, Lily's neat handwriting filling pages with stories of her training in healing charms and rudimentary auror techniques, while Severus recounted his experiments with new potions formulas in his small private lab. Though distance separated them, their bond held strong. The world was moving quickly, with reports of dark incidents on the rise, but Lily and Severus refused to surrender to fear. When Lily wrote of her decision to join a new group forming to combat the dark threat, an organization rumored to be led by Albus Dumbledore, Severus felt a jolt of apprehension for her safety. She explained that they called themselves the Order of the Phoenix, a group united in protecting the vulnerable. Severus offered his support in his replies, though he stayed quiet about his own uncertain path. He had found a position as an assistant to a potier who specialized in healing drafts, a job that allowed him to refine his skill and test new ideas with relative freedom. However, he was not oblivious to the unrest. The shadows were lengthening, and whispers of pure blood supremacy filled the corners of wizarding society. Severus found himself torn between old ties and new convictions. On a chilly afternoon, Lily appeared at his door with a tired smile, weary from her duties, but relieved to see him again in person. She had scrounged a few hours away from her responsibilities to check on him. He offered her tea in his modest living space, an assortment of potion bottles and charts strewn about in organized chaos. They talked in hushed tones about the recent wave of disappearances and attacks, the fear creeping into every corner of wizarding Britain. Lily's eyes shone with determination as she spoke of the Order's efforts to gather information and protect those in danger. Severus listened intently, a quiet resolve forming within him. Though he had never been a social creature, he recognized the need for unity. He heard from Lily how witches and wizards from all backgrounds were coming together to stand against this growing darkness. With her gentle encouragement, he found himself gradually drawn toward the idea of assisting them, not just from the shadows, but openly lending his talents. It was not an easy decision. Severus was approached more than once by old acquaintances who tried to recruit him into the Death Eaters, a group serving the Dark Lord and his fanical vision of pure blood dominance. Their promises of power were alluring, yet every time Severus glanced at the letter pinned to his desk, Lily's words urging him to stand for what was right, he turned them away. She visited again, briefing him on the newly formed alliances and the clandestine meetings. A new sense of unity had sprung up around them, as though hope itself had become a magical force pushing back the darkness. Lily's unwavering belief that Severus would do the right thing was both a balm and a burden. He didn't want to fail her, nor did he want to compromise his own principles, which had been shaped by years of her influence and his own introspection. In time, with quiet resolve, Severus made the choice to actively support the Order. He wasn't entirely at ease with the idea of being surrounded by people who might judge him for his background or his Slytherin ties, but Lily's presence gave him courage. He arrived at a safe house one evening, stepping into a small room where a handful of wizards and witches huddled around a table, speaking in low voices. Lily was there, offering him a bright, reassuring smile. Though there was initial caution from some, especially those who knew him only as a reclusive Slytherin with a penchant for dark academic interests, Lily's vouching for him set the tone. Over the next few weeks, Severus contributed in the only way he knew how. He crafted potions to heal injuries, to bolster defenses, to provide cover in risky operations. His skill was undeniable, and he gradually earned the grudging respect of the Order's members. Lily stood proudly by his side, her presence softening the edges of any distrust. Together they tackled problem after problem, forging a new sense of camaraderie in the face of grave danger. Meanwhile, James Potter, who had also joined the Order, observed the pair with mild surprise, a flicker of curiosity in his gaze whenever Severus demonstrated his brilliance in potion making. The tension between Severus and James lingered. Old schoolyard grievances did not vanish overnight, but Lily, unaware of the depth of their animosity from Hogwarts, recognized only that they shared a common cause now. Severus kept interactions with James minimal, focusing instead on tasks that needed to be done. Lily sometimes wondered if the two could ever put aside their differences, but she did not press the issue. She was too busy organizing relief efforts for families threatened by the Death Eaters, connecting them with potions, protective charms, and safe havens. Severus saw Lily's tireless efforts and realized that she was the living embodiment of empathy in action. In her, he found inspiration to continue down a path that was at once perilous and noble. Their missions grew more complex. Sometimes they had to infiltrate areas suspected of harboring Death Eater sympathizers, retrieving key information that might save lives. Severus's knack for stealth and clever spellwork proved invaluable. Lily's ability to defuse dangerous situations with a calm presence made her equally indispensable, and whenever tension ran high, she was the first to offer reassurance. Despite the danger, there were moments of lightheartedness. In the cramped quarters they sometimes shared, Lily and Severus would stay up late, analyzing potions' methods or quietly recalling their Hogwarts years. Every so often, Lily would tease him about the time he made a portion of his eyebrows disappear when experimenting on an untested hex. He would respond with a dry remark about her ill-fated attempt at a flying charm during their first year. Their banter reminded them that beyond the war, beyond the looming threat, they were two friends who had grown side by side, weathering storms together. But the war escalated and casualties mounted. Lily and Severus attended funerals of Order members who fell to Death Eater attacks, their grief forging a steel determination in them. One night, Lily confided her greatest worry to Severus, that she could lose him in the chaos, that someday she would turn to him for reassurance and find only an empty space. Severus, troubled by the same fears, brushed back a lock of her hair, promising in his own stoic way that he would do everything in his power to survive, to remain by her side, if only to shield her from the worst of it all. The darkness seemed unrelenting, and the Order needed every advantage. Severus found himself in a position to gather intelligence from his old Slytherin contacts, though the line he walked was razor-thin. Lily worried for him, fearing that infiltration into those circles would bring him closer to the darkness he had so far resisted, but he reassured her that his allegiance was unshakable. It was during one of these dangerous missions that Severus discovered a plan. The Death Eaters were targeting families allied with the Order, planning to strike swiftly and decisively. Racing against time, Severus relayed the information to Lily, who quickly assembled a team to evacuate the families most at risk. Their swift action saved many lives. Trust in Severus grew among the Order, and while James Potter remained somewhat standoffish, even he conceded that Severus's willingness to risk himself for others proved his sincerity. Occasionally, Lily would try to spark conversation between James and Severus, hoping that old grudges could be laid to rest. The two men mostly interacted in clipped exchanges, but the outright hostility was absent. Severus's priority was always Lily, her safety, her well-being, her happiness. He took on more missions to gather information, sometimes returning to her exhausted and drained, but relieved that his efforts aided their cause. Lily in turn practiced healing charms on him, carefully tending to the bruises and cuts he accumulated, offering gentle scoldings about taking fewer risks, even as her eyes brimmed with unspoken gratitude. In these tender moments, the war's horrors seemed to recede just enough for them to remember a simpler time. Two children under a willow tree by the Black Lake, marveling at magical wonders. But innocence was long gone, replaced by the hard reality that every choice could tip the balance between victory and defeat. As the war pressed on, the Order prepared for a final confrontation. Rumors circulated that the Dark Lord himself sought a way to breach the last bastions of resistance, determined to claim absolute power. Plans were made for a decisive stand, for an operation to dismantle key Death Eater strongholds and cut off the head of the snake, so to speak. Lily and Severus knew the risks. They stood together in a makeshift command center, eyes locked in an understanding that this could be the end, for them, for everything they held dear. James Potter was there too, shooting an occasional glance at Lily and Severus, as though he finally understood the depth of their bond, a connection forged through years of trust. On the appointed night, the Orders struck with every ounce of courage and skill they had. Chaos erupted, spells lighting the sky in flashes of green and red, the acrid smell of battle thick in the air. Severus wove through the fray, his wand a blur of counter-curses, protective wards and stunners, doing what he could to shield Lily and the others from harm. Lily, her face set in fierce determination, was equally relentless, casting shield charms over wounded allies, retaliating with disarming spells, refusing to let the darkness consume them. The battle raged on for what felt like hours, a cacophony of blasts and screams, until at last the tide turned. With the combined might of the Order and its allies, key Death Eater enclaves were overrun. Severus found himself face to face with a high-ranking Death Eater whose sneer mocked his supposed betrayal of pure-blood ideals. But Severus did not flinch. The wand he raised trembled only with the adrenaline of conflict, not with doubt. The moment ended in a flash of light. The Death Eater fell and Severus stood victorious, albeit shaken. He saw Lily across the battlefield, still standing, still fighting, and his heart lurched with gratitude and relief. By dawn, the Order had prevailed. The Dark Lord's forces were in disarray, scattered or captured. For the time being, the Wizarding World had a reprieve, a chance to rebuild from the ashes. Exhausted but alive, Lily and Severus made their way through the aftermath, assisting the healers, comforting survivors, searching for any friend or foe who might still be clinging to life. Eventually, as sunlight crept over the horizon, Lily found Severus. She collapsed against him in a hug that spoke volumes more than words could convey. He held her, feeling her heartbeat, each pulse a reminder that they had survived this darkness together. James appeared then, bloodied but upright, and gave them a nod of acknowledgement. It wasn't forgiveness for old grudges, but it was a gesture of respect. For the first time, a flicker of camaraderie passed between the two men. In the days that followed, Lily and Severus assisted in rebuilding efforts, tracking down remnants of dark magic and ensuring that the Wizarding World could begin to heal. They were hailed as heroes along with the rest of the Order, though both felt uneasy with the title. They had done only what was necessary. Life eventually settled into a new normal. Lily and Severus decided to open a small research lab together, combining their expertise in potions and charms, determined to help repair a society that had nearly been destroyed by hate. Their partnership became a beacon of collaboration, proof that old house rivalries and prejudices could be overcome. Hogwarts students spoke of them in awe, a friendship that had endured war and tragedy. Letters arrived weekly from old classmates, some amazed, some apologetic for their earlier judgments. Lily and Severus humbly accepted the praise, focusing on the work that lay ahead. James and Sirius, though never close friends with Severus, laid down their past hostilities and sometimes even asked for potions assistance. Severus remained guarded, but Lily gently prodded him toward acceptance. She teased that one day they might all gather for a meal without tension. He gave her a small, rare laugh, saying he would make the attempt only for her sake. Year by year, the Wizarding World mended itself. The scars of war didn't fade entirely, but new life flourished. Lily's research in advanced healing potions saved countless lives, while Severus found new breakthroughs in protective enchantments. Their lab expanded, employing skilled witches and wizards from all backgrounds, a testament to the belief that unity, not division, was the path forward. Rumors of the Dark Lord's possible return occasionally circulated, but Lily and Severus refused to live in fear. They trained apprentices and shared knowledge widely, ensuring that if darkness rose again, there would be many ready to fight it. Whenever they needed solace, they would take quiet walks by a small pond near their lab, reminiscent of the Black Lake at Hogwarts, recalling the day they first discovered the joys of shared wonder. In their personal spheres, Lily found love and companionship with someone who embraced her dedication to the healing arts, while Severus quietly poured his devotion into his work, finding contentment in the safety Lily had found. Their friendship endured as a central pillar of their lives, untainted by the complexities that romance might have introduced. A different kind of love that defied easy categorization. They would spend evenings discussing old memories, mishaps in potions class, inside jokes from Hogwarts, the pranks they avoided, the silent corners of the library that had become their sanctuary. Sometimes, Lily would muse on the possibility of what might have happened if they had never stayed friends, and how that single difference could have changed the world they knew. Severus would shudder at the thought of losing her loyalty. He recognized that her presence had been the catalyst for so many choices he made, each step of moral clarity drawing him further from a darker path that had once seemed inevitable. As the years rolled on, their research lab gained renown. They were invited to speak at Hogwarts, sharing their discoveries and inspiring new generations to forge bonds that transcended house lines. The students stared in awe at the pair who had redefined the limits of potions and charms, whose collaboration had softened the hearts of cynics and led to innovations no single witch or wizard could have achieved alone. Standing at the podium of the Great Hall, Lily glanced at Severus and saw not the isolated boy he once was, but a self-possessed wizard who had found his place in the world. She felt a warm pride that reflected in her radiant smile. Severus addressed the students with measured composure, urging them to remain curious, to reject prejudice, and to find friends who challenged them to be their best selves. He caught sight of Lily grinning at him and allowed himself the briefest smile in return, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had traveled together. When the talk ended, they were approached by a flurry of eager students, some of whom asked for autographs, while others clamored for more details on the spells they had invented. Lily and Severus patiently answered questions, encouraging the young witches and wizards to experiment responsibly and to trust in each other's strengths. That evening, they were given rooms in the castle, a nostalgic return to the place where their bond had first flourished. Lily took a moment to stroll through the corridors, running her fingers along the old stone walls. Severus accompanied her, wordlessly matching her pace. They eventually found themselves at a certain willow by the lake, now grown taller and more gnarled with age. They sat beneath it, as they had years ago, the memory of their first shared moments vibrant in their minds. The moonlight cast gentle reflections on the water, stirring a deep sense of peace. Lily spoke softly of how grateful she was that he had never discovered any reason to doubt her, that he hadn't let insecurities or misinformation rob them of a friendship that had shaped their destinies. Severus, throat tight with emotion he rarely showed, simply placed his hand over hers, the silence between them more powerful than any words. They stayed like that, the whispering wind around them bearing witness to a story of devotion and redemption. Days turned into decades. Lily and Severus continued to collaborate, to thrive, to be each other's anchor whenever the waves of the world grew too rough. Every new conflict that arose seemed more surmountable because they had each other's trust as a foundation. They remained steadfast, guided by a bond that had begun in childhood curiosity and matured into a profound alliance of spirit and intellect. And so it was that the wizarding world found a shining example in the friendship between Lily Evans and Severus Snape, a testament to the power of understanding, loyalty, and compassion. A living proof that what might have been a tragic tale of bitterness and regret had, instead, become a beacon of hope and unity. Many would speak of them in hushed reverence, weaving stories of how a small kindness and an unbroken trust changed the fate of countless lives, reminding every witch and wizard that sometimes all it takes to reshape the world is the unwavering loyalty of a single friend. Lily and Severus never forgot the significance of that day by the willow tree, the day they decided to trust in the unique magic they found within each other. It was a decision that transformed their path and, in turn, reshaped the path of the wizarding world itself. They carried on, through joys and sorrows, triumphs and setbacks, always returning to that memory of shared laughter and promise, reminding themselves and others that the smallest gestures can reverberate through time, healing wounds and forging destinies anew.